Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Deputy Vice-Chancellors, especially Professor Keert, who will also be participating in this inaugural lecture this evening. Executive Deans of Faculties, especially Professor Baron van Wyk, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, Built Environment and Technology. Professors and all members of the Academy herein present. Members of senior management, students, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, family members, friends, and colleagues who may be joining us online. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you to this evening on the occasion of the inaugural lecture to be delivered by Professor Kerry-Lynn Thomson. I wish to acknowledge and welcome in particular Prof. Thomson's family and extended family and friends, especially her husband Clive, her son Tanner, and her parents Lloyd and Sandy Thomson, as well as her mentors and colleagues who have journeyed with her, supported and encouraged her, particularly on this road to this major career milestone for her. We know that the support of family and friends and colleagues is at the core of our success as individuals. Let me congratulate you, Professor. It's good to call you Professor Thomson, on your outstanding achievement. Being promoted to the level of a full professor is the ultimate recognition of your accomplishments as an academic and a scholar. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is always a matter of personal pride and pleasure when one of our own is acknowledged by their peers in the academic community. This is indeed the case with you, Kerry-Lynn. You completed all your studies at this university and then switched from being a student to being a lecturer at Mandela University. You then rose steadily through the academic ranks to the point where you are now a full professor. Prof. Thomson, your immersion in advanced communication networking technologies and the new knowledge you have generated and disseminated in the fields of cybersecurity, information security, corporate culture, and the human aspects of information assurance is exemplary. Your research achievements speak to your dedication and passion to make a difference to these topical knowledge fields, which are also highly relevant for the pandemic time in which we find ourselves. We acknowledge the advisory and the leadership role that you fulfill in your work in the Cisco Academy, where you have trained and advised Cisco instructors from academies in South Africa and the Middle East. And dedication to the craft have been widely recognized and acknowledged through a laudable number of publications, research, and teaching awards. In addition, your expertise has been recognized beyond the university in that you have served on an impressive array of national and international program committees. Your capabilities have been Chair of the International IFIP Technical Committee 11, Working Group 12. You're also the Vice Chair of the Eastern Cape Chapter of the Institute of Information Technology Professionals, South Africa, and the Head of Department of our Network Engineering. You are thus making an outstanding scholarly contribution in the discipline and profession of information technology at the university, locally, nationally, and internationally. Your achievements to date, your scholarly track record, your career at Mandela University, and your role in your discipline and profession have been remarkable. Your contributions as a teacher and a researcher demonstrate in word and deed what it means to be an engaged scholar and an academic citizen. We look forward to listening to your lecture tonight. Your contribution will offer us deeper insight into the importance of utilizing people as part of the cybersecurity defense through the cultivation of cybersecurity cultures in organizations and a cybersecurity conscious society. Thank you, Professor Thomson, for pushing boundaries and for being unequivocally committed to quality and excellence in your discipline. We are proud of your accomplishments and your contributions. Congratulations once again, Professor Thomson. On our request, Professor Warren van Wyk, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology, to introduce Prof. Thomson to us. Over to you, Prof. van Wyk.
Vice-Chancellor, colleagues. Kerry-Lynn was born on 16th of June 1980 in the town of Uitenhage, now known as Kariga. She went on to matriculate from Rivier College Girls High School in 1998, where she was both junior and senior head girl. In the same year, Kerry-Lynn was chosen as the Eastern Cape Province Matric of the Year person. Through this competition, Kerry-Lynn received a full scholarship to study at the Port Elizabeth Technikon, now the Nelson Mandela University, and chose to study information technology. As a second-year student, Kerry-Lynn was chosen as part of a student team from Europe, the Middle East, and Africa to travel to Paris, France, and Monte Carlo, Monaco, to build communication networks for Cisco Systems conferences. She later graduated with a National Diploma in Information Technology and a Bachelor of Technology, both cum laude. While completing her master's and doctoral studies, Kerry-Lynn worked as the Assistant Academy Manager for the Sub-Saharan Africa Cisco Academy Training Center at the university. As a senior instructor in the Academy program, Kerry-Lynn was responsible for training numerous instructors throughout Africa and the Middle East in advanced communication network topics. In 2007, she was chosen for Rotary International's Group Study Exchange Program, a cultural and vocational exchange, which took place in Pennsylvania in the USA. Later that same year, Kerry-Lynn joined the university as a lecturer in information technology and graduated with her doctorate in 2008 with a thesis titled MISSTEV, Model for Information Security Shared Tacit Espoused Values. She was promoted to senior lecturer in 2009 and became an associate professor in 2013. She's currently the HOD for Network Engineering at the School of IT and the senior member of the Center for Research in Information and Cybersecurity, or CRICS. Kerry-Lynn currently holds both CCNA and CCNA Security Communication Network Industry certifications and has been invited to run numerous global cybersecurity webinars through the Academy program. She's the current chair of the International IFIP Technical Committee 11 Working Group 12, whose focus is the human aspects of information security and assurance. In addition, she is the current vice chair of the Eastern Cape chapter of the Institute of IT Professionals, South Africa. She has published close to 50 peer-reviewed publications, and the focus of her research is on the human aspects of information and cybersecurity. The research includes studies into the pervasive integration of information and cybersecurity into undergraduate university curricula, cyber safety for school children, developing a comprehensive strategy to raise national cybersecurity awareness using aspects of cyber psychology, and defining cybersecurity climates. Encompassing this research is the aim of cultivating cybersecurity cultures through awareness, training and education in an attempt to mitigate cyber threats by reducing the human attack surface, which is the focus of her lecture tonight. Kerry-Lynn is an avid roller coaster enthusiast. I would have guessed that, I suppose. Loves traveling and exploring new cultures, cooking and reading. And she has a special skill that she wants me to announce. If anyone is in need of an expert in keeping a preschooler occupied during the pandemic, she is open for consultations. Thank you, Kerry-Lynn.
Good evening. Professor Foxcroft, Professor van Beek, thank you so much for the welcome and for the kind words. Vice-Chancellor, Deputy Vice-Chancellors, members of the Executive Management Committee, Executive Deans, colleagues, students, and guests, thank you so much for being here tonight for this event and for showing your interest. There's a quote from the so-called father of the World Wide Web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, which says, "The goal of the web is to serve humanity. We build it now so that those who come to it later will be able to create things that we cannot ourselves imagine." The internet and the World Wide Web have completely revolutionized our world and how we communicate in it. And what I'd like to do tonight is just start by sharing a few statistics with you about internet connectivity around the world and in South Africa. There are currently 7.83 billion people on the planet, with 4.66 billion internet users. Of those, 4.2 billion are active social media users, and 5.22 billion are unique mobile phone users. This world map shows the population of internet users in each region versus the total population. And as you can see, the highest percentage in the world is in Northern Europe, where 96% of the population have access to the internet. The lowest percentage in the world can be found in Eastern Africa, with just 24% of the population having access to the internet. And in comparison, 62% of people in Southern Africa have access to the internet. So as mentioned, 4.66 billion people are currently connected to the internet, which translates to 59.5% of the total world population. And what we see each year is that these numbers are just increasing. In 2020 alone, an extra 316 million people got access to the internet, and these numbers are always increasing. And of the people connecting to the internet, 92.6% of people worldwide do so through a mobile device of some kind. In South Africa, we have a population of 59.67 million people, with 64% of the population having access to the internet, or 38.19 million. However, our mobile connections far exceed our population, with 100.6 million mobile connections. And this is sitting at 168.5%, which is one of the highest percentages in the world. And 25 million South Africans are active social media users, with WhatsApp, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram being the most popular platforms in South Africa. Now, what are we doing when we're using the internet? How much time are we spending online? Well, the global average amount of time that someone spends online is 6 hours and 54 minutes, and this is for internet users aged 16 to 64. However, in South Africa, our daily time we spend online is 10 hours and 6 minutes. And what are we doing in those 10 hours and 6 minutes? There's a variety of activities, including watching TV, time on social media, an average of 3.5 hours per day, time listening to music streaming services, reading press media, and gaming, of course. Now, when people are accessing the internet, there are two main concerns that have been expressed. The first is, how are companies using the personal data that we're sharing online? We're giving out a lot of information, and there's a concern about how companies are using this. That was 33.1% of the global population versus 44.5% of people in South Africa. The second concern is being able to distinguish what is real and what is fake on the internet. And this is expressed by 56.4% of people globally versus 71.6% of people in South Africa. And in today's day and age, with so much misinformation and disinformation and general fake news, this really should be a concern when going online. Now, what can be seen from these statistics is that more and more people are getting access to the internet. We're spending more time online, and generally speaking, our world is becoming more and more interconnected. And one of the things that's helping with this is the Internet of Things, or the IoT. Now, the IoT is those billions of devices all around the world that are connecting onto the internet, collecting and sharing huge amounts of data. Statista estimates that there's currently 21.5 billion devices connected to the internet. This number is expected to jump to about 125 billion devices by 2030. Now, some of the more popular or well-known IoT implementations are certainly our smart homes. Now, with smart homes, various aspects of our homes, including the lighting, the alarm systems, the coffee machines, the TVs, the air conditioners, they're all talking to each other to create this conveniently automated home for us, and very conveniently controlled through our smartphones. However, the IoT is about so much more than convenience, and it's set to disrupt many industries, including healthcare, where it's referred to as the Internet of Medical Things, or the IOMT. Now, this includes wearables that patients would use to check things like their body temperature and heart rate, and in future, internal sensors for patients that need accurate and up-to-the-minute and constantly updated data. IoT is already disrupting transportation. And in aviation, for example, the older aeroplane engines used to have about 250 sensors to monitor performance and mechanical operations. However, the newer aeroplane engines, the IoT-enabled engines, have over 5,000 sensors, gathering about 10 gigabytes of data per second. Now, all of this data that's being collected by all of these devices and sensors around the world, much of it is sent to the cloud. Now, cloud computing is simply that collection of remote servers on the internet that's there to manage and store and process these huge amounts of data that are being sent. And it's estimated by IDC that by 2025, the IoT volume of data alone will be 80 zettabytes. And bearing in mind that 1 zettabyte is equivalent to about a trillion gigabytes. So we're collecting all of this data and sending it up to the cloud. However, with this increasing data, there are increasing concerns with using cloud computing for this data, including security concerns, latency issues, downtime issues, and bandwidth issues, which is where the concept of fog computing or edge computing comes in. Now, with fog computing, simply placing fog nodes between the IoT devices and sensors and the data sources and the cloud. And for that data that needs less processing and less computing, it can be sent to the fog nodes instead of up to the cloud. And this allows for more efficient and quicker turnaround in terms of data processing to be sent back and decisions to be made. Large volumes of data, of course, could still be sent to the cloud. But with all this information that is being collected, all of this data that's being collected, even with cloud and fog computing, the processing and analysis of this data it remains complex to make it useful data for us and for the world. And this is where artificial intelligence comes in. Now, when artificial intelligence and IoT work together, we refer to it as the artificial intelligence of things, or the AIoT. And this allows for optimal decisions to be made with little to no human interference, and discoveries to be made in a fraction of the amount of time that it would take people. And we can think of IoT and all the sensors as the nervous system and AI as the brains. Artificial intelligence allows, and IoT allows for the quicker and more accurate diagnosis of diseases. It allows for things like autonomous self-driving cars and trucks on our roads. And things like a virtual tutor, which could be used by teachers or lecturers to do facial analysis of students while in class to pick up on their emotion, to see whether they are struggling or disengaged, and seeing if they need help. Now, of course, the AI and the IoT promises many things for the future, a lot of benefits. And our world is becoming increasingly interconnected. But the question is, when we're interacting in this increasingly interconnected world, are we doing so securely? Is security a priority? As said by Sir Martin Rees, advances in technology, hugely beneficial though they are, render us vulnerable in new ways. Now, there are a variety of cyber attacks and cyber threats out there, one of which that is particularly popular at the moment is ransomware. Now, ransomware is extortion software that compromises and locks a computer until a ransom is paid. Or a threat actor may threaten to publish private information if a ransom is not paid. And ransomware and cybercrime in general, it's a booming business. On the dark web, there are so-called business models called cybercrime as a service, where organized criminal groups, they sell or they rent out their hacking software and tools and expertise to anyone willing to pay. Now, if an organization is hit by ransomware, or a company is hit by ransomware, and they lose a server or two worth of data, or they need to pay a ransom in order to retrieve their data, get their data back, that certainly is an issue. But let's imagine for a moment that the servers compromised through a ransomware attack are those managing the traffic lights at a busy intersection. Or as was the case in 2017 with the WannaCry ransomware attack. This attack compromised over 300,000 machines in 150 countries, including 80 hospitals in the United Kingdom. Patients from these hospitals had to be diverted to other medical institutions because they could no longer access the patient's medical records. And things like MRI scanners and X-ray machines had to be taken offline while the legacy network systems were patched. And earlier this year, there was a compromise of Colonial Pipeline in the US. Now, Colonial Pipeline is responsible for about 45% of the fuel supply along the US's east coast. They were compromised by a ransomware attack from a group called DarkSide, and they had to shut down their operations and freeze their IT systems, which of course led to fuel supply shortages along the east coast. This was for the military, for aviation, and for consumers in general, and it led to a lot of panic buying in some areas. And these are just a couple of examples, and there's many of them, where what used to be cyber attacks in cyberspace are now crossing over into the real world and having real world impacts. In terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're all acutely aware of that, of course. But together with that, there's been a surge in cybercrime, dubbed the cybercrime pandemic. McAfee observed 648 threats per minute in the fourth quarter of 2020, with risk-based security indicating over 37 billion records were compromised in 2020, up 141% compared to 2019. And for the first time ever in the space of 12 months, over 10 million distributed denial of service attacks took place. And a new organization fell victim to ransomware approximately every 10 seconds. According to IBM, the top 5 industries affected by cyber attacks in 2020 were healthcare, financial, pharmaceuticals, technology, and energy. Now, cybercrime has cost both organizations and individuals millions of dollars during the COVID-19 pandemic alone. And according to IBM's Cost of a Data Breach report, the average total cost of a data breach increased to $4.24 million, with customer PII, or personally identifiable information, being the costliest record lost or stolen at $180 per record. The average total cost of a ransomware breach was estimated to be $4.62 million. But by far, one of the top attack vectors in 2020 were phishing attacks. Phishing attacks are when threat actors try to get sensitive or confidential information from someone by disguising themselves as someone trustworthy, someone that can be trusted. Now, phishing attacks and campaigns are very often sent out on emails, but it could be on SMSs or WhatsApps. And these are the communications we receive where there's a link that needs to be followed or an attachment that needs to be opened, and a sense of urgency. If you don't do this, then you're going to be locked out of your email account or your bank account or your Netflix subscription. And the average total cost of a phishing attack in 2020 was roughly $4.65 million. Now, there's a constant tension in cyberspace between cybersecurity and cybercrime, or cybersecurity professionals and cybercriminals. And they exist in a symbiotic relationship where, as cybersecurity defenses get stronger, so too must the cybercriminals. And as the cybercriminals get stronger, so too must the cybersecurity defenses. And very often this symbiotic relationship is being played out on what's referred to as the attack surface. An attack surface is the set of points on the boundary of a system component, or an environment where an attacker can try to enter, cause an effect on, or extract data from that system, component, or environment. So essentially, an attack surface is all those gaps in an organization's security where a threat actor might try to exploit and access or contribute towards a data breach. Now, organizations extend or increase their attack surface by adopting things like IoT technologies, migrating to the cloud, and decentralizing their workforce. Now, for many organizations, the pandemic forced a decentralization of the workforce, with people having to work from home, which introduced many new challenges, including the fact that now every employee's home internet connection was included in this widened attack surface. Now, one of the types of attack surface that exists is a digital or technical attack surface. And this is those parts of an organization's network that is typically accessible through the internet, and particularly those things that are sitting outside of its firewall, including cloud infrastructure that might be being used, web applications, virtualization through container networking, industrial control systems, and enterprise IoT. It, of course, also includes the endpoints in a network, like mobile devices and laptops and desktops, that have access to both internal resources as well as being accessible through the internet. Now, when it comes to the reduction of this digital or technical attack surface, most often we have a dedicated or an integrated IT security team who is responsible for this reduction and protecting the digital attack surface. And according to the NIST cybersecurity framework, there are a few key things that the security team should be doing in order to reduce the attack surface. One of those is to, of course, identify the assets that need to be protected on the network and in the organization, as well as identifying potential threats, cyber attacks and cyber threats to those assets. The IT security team, of course, then needs to protect the network and the IT infrastructure itself. They need to be able to detect anomalies and attacks coming into the network, and they should be able to respond through comprehensive incident response strategies if an attack were to occur. And if an attack were to occur, they need to be able to recover by building in resilience in their network to both internal and external threats. Now, very often when we think about cybersecurity, or the focus of cybersecurity is on these technical solutions, on the digital attack surface, including things like the firewalls, the intrusion detection and prevention systems, the VPNs, and encryption that can all be used to stop these cyber attacks coming in. But while these technical solutions can catch a lot of the cyber attacks out there and mitigate those attacks, they can't stop everything. Employees often are under the impression that organizations can protect themselves from these cyber attacks because of all these technical solutions as well. However, in order to capture and pick up on all these cyber attacks or stop these cyber attacks, we need to have people as part of cybersecurity too. We need to include the human aspects of cybersecurity, which include things like the attitudes, perceptions, beliefs, and ultimately behavior of people within the context of cybersecurity, amongst a whole variety of other things. And it's vitally important that people are part of the solution and that people can learn to intrinsically behave securely when online. If we neglect the human aspects of cybersecurity, we're essentially increasing the human attack surface. And the human attack surface are those gaps in an organization's security that are there because of the actions and activities of people. And it could be as a result of negligence, errors, insider threats, and the susceptibility of people to social engineering. Social engineering attacks target people, and they rely on the psychological manipulation of people to influence them to perform certain actions or divulge confidential information to the benefit of that threat actor. And it's often referred to as hacking the human. And social engineers exploit our basic human instincts to trust, and to trust things that look legitimate. And any one of us can fall victim to social engineering attacks. We can never think, this is something that's not going to happen to me. I'll spot it coming. And this is highlighted by Verizon's data breach report in 2020, where over 3/4 of data breaches in 2020 had elements of defrauding humans. People were the target. Hackers, in some cases, yes, were going for the flaws in computer configuration, device configuration, and firewalls, and targeting the technical aspects. But over 3/4 included targeting people, at least in the initial attack vectors. 2 examples of social engineering attacks happened in 2020. The first was in August in South Africa. A company by the name of Experian, a credit reporting agency, they experienced a major data breach. Experian confirmed that the IT infrastructure had not been compromised, but someone had used social engineering to contact an Experian employee, convince them that they were a client, a customer, and asked for the details of millions of Experian's clients, including home address details, work details, job titles, credit card details, and email addresses. SABREC, or the South African Banking Risk Information Center, said that over 24 million South Africans' details, as well as over 800,000 companies' details were compromised through this data breach. Then in July 2020, the official Twitter accounts of many A-list celebrities were compromised. A threat actor used social engineering techniques in order to hijack these official Twitter accounts and sent messages out to the millions of followers. And the messages were something similar to this, where a celebrity would say, "I'm giving back to my community due to COVID-19, and all Bitcoin sent to my address is going to be doubled." So there was an address in the tweet, and if you sent $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, then they'll send back $2,000. And there was a limited time offer, just for 30 minutes, you were able to do this. Celebrities' accounts that were compromised included Barack Obama, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates, and including companies like Apple and Uber. And within the space of a few hours, over $100,000 worth of Bitcoin were transferred to the threat actor's Bitcoin wallet. Twitter sent out a tweet to say that they'd been the victim of a coordinated social engineering attack, and that specific Twitter employees had been targeted through this attack. and it was later confirmed to be a targeted spear phishing attack against a few Twitter employees. People are often seen or referred to as the weakest link in the security chain. However, I believe we need to change our mindset to no longer see people as a risk that needs to be mitigated, but rather that we can be using people as part of the cybersecurity solution, or a human firewall, if you will. And if we can do that and include people as part of the solution, we can reduce the human attack surface. And one of the ways in which organizations can work towards is by cultivating a cybersecurity culture. A cybersecurity culture is the knowledge, beliefs, perceptions, attitudes, assumptions, norms, and values of people regarding cybersecurity and how they manifest in people's behavior with information technologies. Taking a step back to corporate culture, as defined by Edgar Schein, it exists at 3 levels. The artifacts level, which is the observable behavior and actions of employees and people in the organization. The espoused values, which are values supported by the organization and expressed by the organization. And the shared tacit assumptions level, which is the shared attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions of employees and people. And it's through these attitudes and beliefs and values that directly impacts the behavior of people. Within the context of cybersecurity culture, the espoused values of the organization should be expressed through cybersecurity or information security policies. Those are the values supported by the organization, and there should be comprehensive cybersecurity awareness, training, and education in order to transfer this to the shared tacit assumptions of employees, communicated in such a way that employees, their attitudes, their beliefs, their perceptions of cybersecurity are impacted. Because as said, the shared tacit assumptions level directly impacts the cybersecurity observable behavior of people at the artifacts level. And it's only once these 3 levels align, the artifacts, the espoused values, and the shared tacit assumptions, that an organization could truly say that they have a cybersecurity culture. But this is, of course, not something that is done overnight, and it's something that is certainly a long-term strategy for organizations. Now, while it's vitally important for organizations to develop and work towards a cybersecurity culture, we of course need to remember that employees are not the only people going online. Young children, teenagers, students, adults, and retirees, all of us, or most of us in our daily lives, are using technology in some way, shape, or form. In 2015, the South African National Cybersecurity Policy Framework was proposed. To effectively deal with cybersecurity, it is prudent that civil society, government, and the private sector play their part in ensuring South Africa has a culture of cybersecurity. Critical to this is the development of a culture of cybersecurity in which role players understand the risks of surfing in cyberspace. So this is certainly calling for a national or a societal cybersecurity culture. And as part of this societal cybersecurity culture, each of us as individual members of that society, every time we go online, whether it's as part of an organization's network, whether it's at home, whether it's using data on our smartphones, or simply using the free Wi-Fi at a coffee shop, we need to be cybersecurity aware, and we need to know how to protect ourselves when we're online. Because as organizations have attack surfaces, so do we. We have our own individual attack surfaces. However, our individual attack surfaces are more commonly called our digital footprints. And our digital footprints are all those data trails that we leave behind when we go online, right, through interacting or visiting certain sites. There are 2 ways in which our digital footprint can be created, either passively or actively. A passive digital footprint is created by us unintentionally, simply by being online. If you visit a website, then the web server could log your IP address, your ISP, and your approximate location. Your active digital footprint is created more intentionally when you go online, and it's through all those things that are shared. When you update a status on Facebook, or you post a photo to Instagram, or you send an email or visit a website. We need to know when we're going online that we are constantly being profiled. It may seem harmless to leave little bits and pieces of information here and there, a little bit of information in exchange for a free app or answering these quizzes on Facebook. We're pushing information out there all the time. We're profiled by the so-called big tech companies and data brokers who are wanting to sell our information. And our digital footprints reveal a lot about us, including our online behavior, our online actions, our buying habits, and our personalities. So just like we'd want organizations to reduce their attack surfaces, we should be reducing ours and trying to reduce the size of our digital footprint when we go online and control what it is we put out there and to who. Now, we have technical and human aspects to this as well. We need to be updating and patching the devices that we use to go online. Security and privacy settings for all those platforms that we're using, social media, emails, etc. Anti-tracking software should be used. There are anti-tracking free email browser extensions that we could be using. And things like multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication, so we are no longer reliant just on passwords to prove who we are. We also, of course, the human side of things, we need to be able to recognize the vulnerabilities in ourselves and recognize phishing attacks, ransomware attacks, and various other social engineering attacks. Because if we're not cybersecurity aware and we're not browsing securely, then the more we browse, the more we are simply just giving away. And the more chance there is for cyber criminals to be able to use this kind of information against us. But in order to know how to protect ourselves, we of course need to be cybersecurity aware. And from a societal cybersecurity culture point of view, there should be coordinated cybersecurity awareness campaigns. But these awareness campaigns cannot be generic and simply put out there to people. They must be age appropriate, environment appropriate. They should be focused on relevant cyber attacks and cyber threats for various age groups as well as various environments. So, for example, focus on cyberbullying for younger children and perhaps financial scams for students and adults. But vital to this as well, I believe that these cybersecurity awareness campaigns should be underpinned by behavioral theories. Things like social learning theory, sociocultural theory, and protection motivation theory, as well as pedagogically sound educational principles to ensure that awareness doesn't just remain awareness, that the cybersecurity awareness can be translated into action, making this approach and the way forward for a societal cybersecurity culture one that needs to be truly interdisciplinary. Each of us has a role to play in this societal cybersecurity culture. We need to empower ourselves to not only be confident and capable while online, but be able to do so and go online securely. We need to be proactive against cyber attacks and not reactive. We don't all have to be cybersecurity experts, but we need to be able to collaborate and work together in order to build this cybersecurity conscious society. And if we can do that, if we can actively be reducing our attack surfaces and our digital footprints, then I truly believe we can start enjoying the benefits of technology both now and in the future. As said by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the web as I envisage it, we have not seen it yet. The future is still so much bigger than the past. I thank you.
Professor Kerry-Lynn Thomson, it is my privilege to congratulate you on a very interesting inaugural lecture where you shared your thoughts with us around cybersecurity, reducing the attack surface. It has been a fascinating lecture, timeous, intellectually stimulating, remarkably relevant, and just what we need at this time, this place. As your research indicates, the Internet of Things will have 125 billion things connected by 2030, and already close to 60% of the world's population have access to the Internet. The online turn in higher education is another indication of the dramatic growth of digital praxis and the expansion of our work and existences in cyberspaces. Are we doing so securely? Is the key question you are raising. The attack surfaces, those exposed areas of an organization that make systems more vulnerable, can compromise an organization's security, so you argue. Your interesting analysis, supported by your impressive research record, suggests that the focus of cybersecurity is often on the digital attack surface and technical solutions, and with less of a focus on the human aspects of cybersecurity. Thus, you emphasize the importance of utilizing people as part of the cybersecurity defense through the cultivation of cybersecurity cultures in organizations and the cybersecurity conscious society. You are certainly making a serious and significant contribution to scholarship and praxis in your field of study on a topic which is of cardinal importance to our university, our country, our world, and our futures. Congratulations, and best wishes with the work lying ahead. May I also express the gratitude of our university for your contributions over many years, and especially relay the thanks of our Vice Chancellor and Senior Executive who are present on this platform. I would now like to take the opportunity to share a message with you from the President of our Alumni Association. Dear Prof. Thomson, congratulations on your inaugural lecture. The Alumni Association looks forward to your support and involvement in our activities. To mark this very special occasion in your academic career and your time at Nelson Mandela University, on behalf of the association, I would like to present you with this symbolic gift. Let me share this gift quickly with you before I conclude. Best wishes for all your future endeavors. In closing, I would like to convey our thanks to those who attended this inaugural lecture virtually. Interest in Prof. Thomson's work and that of our university is much appreciated. Thanks to our DVC, Prof. Cheryl Foxcroft, for welcoming us, and Barend van Wyk, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology, for introducing Prof. Thomson to us. Thanks also to Prof. Thomson's special guests, friends and family, Clive Botha, the husband, Tanner, the son, Lloyd and Sandy Thomson, the parents, family and friends. It's very heartening to read this out. Professor Rousseau van Soms, colleagues in the School of IT and colleagues further afield. Thank you so much for co-traveling with Prof. Thomson. Last, but by no means least, thanks to the institutional governance team in the Office of the Registrar, our communications and marketing team, and our ICT team that made the virtual inaugural possible. You did a great job. This brings to a close the inaugural lecture of Professor Thomson. Many thanks and good night.